I'm Brigadier H.S. Nagra, son of retired and late Major General Gandharv Nagra, who was the first to enter Dhaka on 16th of December 1971. He was, that's 41 years ago and almost to the hour now. And he's the one who actually organized the surrender ceremony of the 1971 war. My father, General Nagra, was commanding a division. He was commanding two mountain division in Assam, and they were looking after the Chinese border. Now, when the war broke out on the 4th of December, on the 5th of December, after the fall of Kamalpur border outpost, the then General Officer commanding 101 Communication Zone, General Gurbakh Singh Gill, he got wounded due to a mine blast. And so my father was the nearest uncommitted general officer, and that very moment, he got a call from the army headquarters in Delhi asking him to rush to Shillong and take over this formation. They were already in battle. The plans had been made by somebody else. Now he was tasked to come and take over the operations based on somebody else's plan, of which he had no idea, except for what he had been briefed. And thereafter, he took on the operations and did his own planning from what briefings he received. So firstly, it's very difficult to fight somebody else's war on somebody else's plans. Secondly, his column was only a 101 communication zone. It was not a fighting formation, it was an administrative or logistics formation. However, in order to tie down the Pakistani troops at that point in time, they had decided, the army headquarters had decided to induct one column from the north with 101 area. They had been given one brigade, infantry brigade, that is 95 infantry brigade under command. Well, as the war developed, the 101 area, they cleared this Kamalpur BOP, border outpost. Thereafter, they cleared, if I recall, it was Jamalpur and Sherpur on the, I think these are two towns on different axes. They crossed the river, they cleared these two towns, and then thereafter they got to Tangel. Tangel is where the paratroopers were dropped at Pungli Bridge. They captured and cleared. Then they cleared Tangel. Now, thereafter they realized that the operations are developing very fast on this. He bid for additional troops. Troops were already committed elsewhere. There were no troops available, perhaps, to the army headquarters. So they did try to make some ad hoc groupings, and they did group another battalion with my father's column, but albeit a little too late. Had those additional troops been available, perhaps the war could well have terminated a day or two earlier even. Anyway, be that as it may, what happened was that because of the river obstacles that had to be crossed, they didn't have their transport with them. They were all the time, the Indian troops were all the time trying to outflank, outmaneuver the Pakistani forces that were retreating. So, so my father had given orders that you, irrespective of what you have to speed up your advance, outflank the Pakistani forces, get behind them. Now, to do that, they used tongas, bullock carts, they used rickshaws, whatever they could get hold of in villages, on the roads, on cycles. They just got hold of those, and the soldiers just moved on. And they moved, enveloping the Pakistani forces, the withdrawing Pakistani forces from all directions, and invariably beat them to the next line of their fallback positions. And that is what helped in putting pressure on the retreating Pakistani troops. And with the second paras also having been given to, after the fall of Tangail, he got an additional battalion under command. They were able to make very steady progress. It was after the fall of Mymensingh, or I'm sorry, geographically I'm not too sure, but one of these towns, my father went up into the maps that they had were old maps which did not have routes marked on those maps. Now what he did was he took a helicopter, went up in the air, and he carried out a reconnaissance towards Dhaka. And he felt that there ought to be a particular track, that there should be a track leading straight into Dhaka. Now this is something that, since it was not marked on the map, there were no plans for it. However, when he went up in the air and he confirmed that there was, he got back immediately, and then that's when he gave orders to second paras to move along that particular axis, and they were able to reach Mirpur Bridge on the 15th evening. Now, in all this, Mr. Qadir Siddiqui's force of the Mukti Bahini, they were of great help, a lot of support. The messages for surrender were carried by Mukti Bahini boys to the Pakistani commanders to surrender. And wherever my father went after liberation of these various towns, he addressed a number of these civic meetings and addressed the people, the local people of these towns at Sherpur, Jamalpur, Mymensingh. There was a lot of honor given to my father. And my father was actually very, very moved by the sufferings that he saw, the suffering of the people out there, what they've been through, what a harrowing time they'd been through. It actually moved him to an extent that even till his dying day, he did very often talk about what people, the local population, had to undergo under the Pakistanis. I mean, the atrocities that the Bengali population had to face, it was something that left a very deep imprint on my father's mind, actually. And he felt that or whatever he did, he wanted to hasten the end of the battle, because he felt that he ought to put an end to the misery of the locals. He felt that he needed to because he heard stories about people being killed, especially on the 14th of December. That's when he gave orders that he's got to, when that genocide, I mean, the martyrs, the intellectuals were killed. He got to know of it through the Mukti Bahini. And that's when he decided that come whatever may, I've got to speed it up. And he gave orders to his troops that he's got to move in at the earliest possible. He can't afford to delay it. Now, when he got to Mirpur Bridge, there was already pressure on Niazi to surrender. Well, my father sent a message back to Calcutta, the army headquarters there, to say that I'm on the outskirts of Dhaka. Give me permission to move in. Now that is something that had to be cleared. This ragtag force of 101 area, which was not a regular formation of the Indian Army, they were on the verge of glory, really. And it's just that when he got his clearance, he sent a message to General Niazi, which was cited in the Time magazine of 27th of December 1971, in which he'd sent a note, a two-line note, "My dear Abdullah, I am here. Give yourself up to me and I will look after you." My father knew General Niazi way back in 1960 when my father was the defense attaché in Karachi. He was in the Indian High Commission in Karachi as the military attaché, and he knew General Niazi because he was the station commander, and they used to meet up on various occasions. And General Niazi had also studied if I remember correctly, he'd studied in Government College Lahore, though senior to my father. My father had, before the war, before 1942, he had been in Government College Lahore as well. So he knew a lot of these senior officers of the Pakistan Army, actually, by virtue of having been the military attaché in Pakistan for 4.5 years. Well, on receiving this note, General Niazi sent General Muhammad Jamshed, GOC 36 Infantry Division, ad hoc division, and he had also been assigned the task of being the GOC of the Dhaka garrison. Now, he came to Mirpur Bridge, General Muhammad Jamshed. That's where he surrendered his pistol to my father. That, having surrendered that pistol, there was a photograph taken, which is the one that I gave to the Honorable Prime Minister last night. Because that is what actually, that event signified the fall of Dhaka, the liberation of Dhaka. Because when the Dhaka garrison commander has surrendered when he surrendered to my father, that was the end of hostilities here in Dhaka itself. Well, my father went in. General Niazi sent his staff car along with General Muhammad Jamshed to get my father. So my father went with General Niazi in that staff car. They interchanged the car flags. They removed the car flag of General Muhammad Jamshed and put my father's car flag on, and with his two staff officers and his ADC, who followed in a subsequent vehicle, they drove straight to the GHQ and met General Niazi. Well, General Niazi, from what I heard, he was very upset, and he used a few expletives for the Pindiwalas, and he said, "Unhone hame marwa diya." पिंडी वालों ने हमें मरवा दिया. Well, with that, my father then told him that, look, right now we've got to organize a formal surrender ceremony. So how are you going to do that? So he said, well, I don't know what we're going to do. How are we going to organize this whole thing? Where is it going to be held? So then on checking up, they decided that the race course was the correct place, big enough, because they expected a large crowd of Bengalis to also come in. Well, they went there and they organized this whole thing, and he told him that, look here, you got to surrender something, hand over something. So he said, well, what about your sword? He said, I don't have a sword with me here. He said, all right, then you got to surrender your pistol. So he carried his pistol and to the surrender ceremony, and he surrendered that pistol to General J.S. Arora, the Eastern Army commander, his counterpart actually. And my father had actually organized the complete surrender ceremony here, including providing the Guard of Honor to General Arora and so on, a mixed Guard of Honor with a company of 2nd Paratroopers of the Indian Army and a company of the Pakistan Army. And thereafter, after the surrender ceremony, the local population was out to lynch Niazi. They just wanted to get at him. My father, being a soldier, he'd given his word to Niazi that I will look after you. Well, he got hold of him and literally formed an umbrella over him, he along with his staff officer, and they took him to the staff car. People were jumping over shoulders to hit Niazi, to get at him, but my father unfortunately bore the brunt of all those assaults on Niazi, intended assaults on Niazi, and he took a few blows, my father, not by design, but it just so happened that since he was there, he was looking after him, and as a soldier, he did his duty and whisked him away from there. Now, sheer coincidence, my father had been he'd been the last Indian officer to take out the last Indian troops from Dhaka in 1947. And in 71, he led the first Indian troops into Dhaka. So that is one coincidence.